Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first episode of 2026, third season of Marketing Blueprint. And to start with a very hot start, we've invited a true international marketing leader, Wouter Blok. How are you doing today? Thank you for joining us.
It's wonderful to be here. Thanks for having me, Rio.
Well, thank you for starting the season with us. I don't know how familiar you are, sorry, with Marketing Blueprint, but basically we have this habit of starting with a quick review of our guest's background. Would that be okay if I started giving a little bit context about who you are and what it is you've been doing so far? You'll have a chance to correct me afterwards.
Go right ahead, Julien.
All right, so let's try that. So you are a marketing leader who actually started as a sales agent, selling products over the phone, which I happen to consider is probably one of the toughest jobs you could do from an office. You became account manager from your early success and sales manager. 5 years into your career, you were already managing a team of 30 SEO specialists. Shortly after that, you became a CMO, sorry, for Easy2Book and enabled both the acquisition, then the integration with Travix before another acquisition took place a short while after that. I believe you've been using your travel agent experience to become a senior industry manager at Google, helping clients such as Booking.com, then CMO at Coolblue, and then VP growth at Sprint, which I believe is now a T-Mobile company, and then at GetYourGuide. But while you were starting those VP experiences at Sprint, you actually became an independent growth consultant, having your own personal business. And today you are also fresh advisory board member for a couple of companies, Voyantis on one hand and Passbook on the other. Is that a good picture of your professional journey, or am I missing something major?
Yeah, there's a little nuance. I think you did a great job. Indeed, my first startup was ClearSense, PPC, SEO agency. We also did some conversion rate optimization. And the team of 30 wasn't specific SEO. It was mainly Google Ads specialists.
Okay, all right, but it's still a pretty large team for someone 5 years into his career. So a pretty impressive start here.
Yeah, it wasn't too scary because in the call center, which indeed it's a great start of a career because having to pick up a phone, it takes courage, and knowing how to convince people, it takes good listening. But already in that call center, I ran shifts of 20, 30, sometimes more people and managers that you oversee. So it wasn't too scary for me.
So I'm glad you start with that because, as I was saying as an intro, I believe that's probably the toughest job you could have in an office because you have to deal with rejection. You have to deal with something that many people are still fearing, which is the fear of picking up the phone and talking to people, convincing people.
Yeah.
So two questions on that. First, I tend to call this BDR or SDR, you call it sales agent, whatever the title we give to that. How does being a BDR help you to get where you are at today, for one? And second, are you still able to sell underwear over the phone?
So I believe understanding your customer is crucial if you're in the marketing business. And understanding the person on the other end of the phone is also crucial if you're in BDR. And the more you can understand of that person before they pick up the phone, the better, because then you know what questions to ask. The most important thing is not to try to sell something, but first understand their needs. And only if you can and state the problem they're having, then you can come with potential solutions. And I think that's very similar in what we're doing in marketing. You need to explain people. Take, for instance, GetYourGuide. You need to, so GetYourGuide is a platform for online experiences and skip the line tickets, etc. when you're traveling. You need to first explain people why they shouldn't go to the museum and stand in line, why they shouldn't wait too long, because it might be that that favorite workshop to make sushi is actually sold out. So those are things that you have to explain first that they actually have a challenge or a problem before you start talking about solutions. And towards your second point, I believe yes. In my role as an advisor for Voyantis, in this case, a MarTech SaaS that does predictive LTV bidding, I go to my network and I connect with people to ask about what they do to grow their customer base, and specifically the ones that are, of more high value. And I investigate, I ask about what their solutions are, what their challenges are, before I come with a solution. So I think I still do that today.
All right. And so let's just rewind a little bit, because we talked about your first experience, but looking at your profile, I saw things before your first experience that I found pretty interesting. It looks like you studied psychology for a couple of years. I assume you were not necessarily planning for 1 year. You may not be planning at this point to be in marketing, but I can only believe psychology is a pretty fantastic background to have when you need to understand your customers. But I also saw that you attended the KLM Flight Academy, which I don't really see how it aligns with a marketing career. What is that all about? Was it your dream as a child that you were trying to achieve here?
I would say that my academic career was a bit messy. I made it through high school, let's put it that way. But I made it through high school maybe too easily, which means if you don't have the chops to just get through lots of books that you really don't care about the matter, then you're fine in university. But in my case, I didn't have to study much. So when I started with psychology, which was actually a suggestion of my dean, because I always wanted to become a pilot, after half a year, I knew, I still want to become a pilot. So I didn't finish that. But the interest in psychology is still there, and I read lots of books. Actually, today I'm reading the book The Choice by Dr. Eger, who's been to Auschwitz and explains later as a psychologist how she came to grips with that trauma. But then the Flight Academy. A boy's dream. Always looked up at airplanes. I also have 150 flight hours. I occasionally still rent an airplane with an instructor because I didn't take my license, because then you have to keep it current. And the link with flying and marketing is not obvious, but I do have a keynote where I explain how to do brand building with a metaphor of a pilot, because you still need to make a flight plan. You need to make sure that you have enough fuel, that the engines have enough thrust, that the wings have enough lift, and you can make a metaphor out of that for your media budget. The amount of engines could be the amount of channels that you have in place. The creative could be the wing that creates the lift. So there's all these things, like drag could be competition, it could be legislations. All these things that can cause drag on a marketing campaign. So I found ways to make a link, but it's not obvious.
The power of storytelling, usually a good sign of a good marketer. And I've seen that the psychology is still something that lives with you today. I've seen the number of psychological tests that you've taken over the years to try to understand who you are a little bit better, to align with the others. We may have a chance to talk about this in a few minutes, but just before that, I'd love to look into your leadership. On your LinkedIn, you're saying, I quote, "My modus operandi is simple: finding and hiring the best MarTech talent and creating an environment they can thrive in. I lead with candor, compassion, and curiosity." One may say that's a very easy statement that anyone could claim, but I check your recommendations. And out of the 25 that you've got, many of them are actually coming not from peers or ex-managers. Many of them are coming from people who worked for you. And I would believe that is a sign of a true leader, to get recognition from people who actually worked for you versus who hired you. How do you get that? What is your leadership secret? What is your strategy here? How can you inspire people to feel like giving you reviews on LinkedIn about what a good manager you've been?
Yeah, it's hard to explain, because I don't think it's a secret. I don't think it's secret sauce or special, and that is something that you see with many people when you have a certain skill, you don't see it as something special because it's just part of you. And in this case, the way that I lead might come from the fact that I am that triple dropout and that I had to start all the way in the bottom in the call center and work my way up. So I've gone through all of the ranks, and especially in the beginning of my career, I had a huge chip on my shoulder because of that, which meant that I just worked really hard, and I knew that anyone who would give me trust, who would give me an opportunity to prove myself, that I would take it. And that is something I reciprocate to people in my teams throughout my career. So I would hire people without any certificates, without any master or whatever bachelor degrees. I would hire even people without experience in a certain field, as long as they show that they have curiosity, that they have, the passion to go for something, that they have that spark in their eyes, and that I have a sense of, that there's a good frequency happening, that I trust them. Then I give them the opportunity. And so that is how I lead. And you might know Daniel Pink, the book where he talked about this study. What makes teams great? What makes people really, really thrive? And if you're in a very transactional business, you might be working in a factory, then more salary or bonus actually works. But if you have even a little bit of an intellectual challenge, then more money at a certain moment actually works detrimental. Above, I believe it was at the time 70K a year, it might now be 90K a year, then that doesn't matter anymore. There are three things that really make a difference. It is, number one, a clear purpose. Number two, creating autonomy. So as soon as that purpose is clear, just get out of their way and let them do it. And number three, mastery. They have to be able to grow personally, professionally. That is what I try to do within my teams.
So you create the right environment, you provide trust, you let them flourish within their role. One thing that I feel becomes a little bit more difficult to do is when you have all the right ingredients, you might become an incredible expert at what you're doing. However, in companies, it's often enough to be successful to become a people manager. But being a people manager is not being a leader. And in what I can see from what you've been achieving so far, you seem to be a people leader. What does it take to become a respected leader? Is it finding the right balance to give that three ingredients that you've been mentioning before?
Yeah. I think one I left out, but I said it in the beginning, right? That you just treat everyone like you want to be treated. And it's so simple. I mean, but at a certain moment when people grow in their careers and they are at a certain level, and I saw that happening at Sprint, I was at a VP level. We got a different parking garage. We had, different amount of holidays. There's all these things that people are suddenly in different camps, put in different camps because of the benefits. But I don't see it that way. So I just talk with everyone, and I'm like intrinsically interested in what makes other people tick. I want to know what they're about, and so this curiosity helps me make a deep connection with people pretty fast. And I believe that is what you need to be a good leader, is to actually care for the people that you work with.
So you kind of leverage the same skills for being a good BDR and a good people leader. You need to care and to be curious and to get to know people before making decisions. That's kind of the same skill that brought you professionally from both ends to where you are today.
Yeah, you can say that.
So you are a very successful corporate leader, but you also have your side gig as a growth consultant. I have so many questions about this. Let me name a few, and I'll let you take it from there. See what you feel like answering first.
Okay.
First, having a side gig, is it about the money or is it about the curiosity? Where do you find the time? Because I mean, a full-time job is a full-time job. Having a side gig on top of this, can be difficult to manage.
Yeah.
And ultimately, was it something that was good for you? Or is it something that others should consider doing as well? Because that ultimately helped you build your career and get to know yourself better and learn new things. How do you see that affecting other people beside your own personal experience?
So I'll start with the first one. The reason I started was because at a certain moment in my career, there was a wrong choice I made. And it didn't work out with my manager and myself. And we decided together it was better to part ways. At the same time, that gave me the feeling I need to have more autonomy in my career. I don't want to have somebody else have power over the course of my career. I want to set it myself. And this is when I very deliberately said I want to become marketing entrepreneur, because even though I did not start the companies I worked at, but I was either one of the first or one of who were instrumental for the growth, I think like an entrepreneur while being an employee. So that makes me an entrepreneur in the field of marketing. And my first assignment, after probably I did about 100 coffee chats between the moment I left that company and my gig at Sprint, I just talked with people about this is what I want to do. This is how I position myself. Who else do you know that this would be relevant for, or that is like me, and do you want me to introduce me to them? So this is how I kind of spread the word like an oil stain, and how I landed on the desk of the CEO of Sprint, the telco in the US before it became T-Mobile. And he was looking exactly like somebody like me for his challenge. And through the Google connection, I landed there. But because it was in the US, I wasn't allowed to do it on my own company. I needed to become an employee. So this is why those are happening at the same time, where I was an employee at Sprint, and at the same time I have marketing entrepreneur, my vehicle. After Sprint, that digital transformation story that I was telling at conferences was so interesting for Google. They then started to hire me as a keynote speaker for either one-on-one sessions where I have Q&A with their large advertisers who are going through a digital transformation, or at events. And that is something that I've always done next to my job ever since I was in the agency from 2005. But I always did it just to give back to the community, right? And I still do that today. However, Google is very willing to pay for it. So indeed, then it's logical that you also send an invoice. And it's very possible to do that next to my work, as long as you're clear to your employer what it is you're actually telling there, and that it's not a conflict of interest, that it's not competitive, etc. And then towards your second question, right? Is it something specifically for me, or do you advise others to do it as well? So I would advise others to have to share knowledge, right? And to do these presentations, because this is also how I landed becoming a paid speaker, is because I just had a lot of experience doing it for free at first. And second, if you want more autonomy in your career, it is great. And if you also have a lack of growth in your current role, and you have interests that might not be able to be entertained by your employer, then by all means, set up your own shop. It could be just an affiliate website. It could be content creation. It could be even charity work. There's lots of things you can do on the side that do fit your own purpose that is not possible to do within your company.
So there is this search for autonomy. There is potentially an exit door when you feel uncomfortable in your current role as well. Yeah. And there is also the fact that you probably learn a lot by testing new stuff that allows you to do things you're not able to do in your current job, because you don't necessarily touch 100% of everything you'd like to touch. Nice. So that's going back to what you were saying earlier, being curious, trying new things, and keeping an eye on the evolution of the market. I mean, marketing, the channels we're using, the technologies we're leveraging, the MarTech in general has changed so much in the past few years. As a leader, it's difficult to keep track of everything, but having your side gig probably also give you an opportunity to test stuff yourself and get your hands a little bit dirty and get to experience it firsthand.
100%. And I know many MarTech people that are actually have their own product on the side. In my case, it's more having my own consultancy on the side, which means I get to see a lot of other kitchens except the one that I'm working for full time. And that is very interesting, especially with, you talked about personality tests. In MBTI, I'm the entrepreneur, which is, a person that gets excited, is a visionary, but also you get bored easily. So if you do these things on the side, it helps prevent getting bored.
So there is another. I mean, you keep yourself busy beside your full time jobs, beside your side consultancy projects. We are now in January 2026, so it has been a few months now that you are advisory board member of a couple of companies. I'm curious about that. What does it bring you personally? Is it, again, checking the kitchen of other people, seeing what's behind the curtain? Is it the excitement of being able to help without doing it yourself? So it's slightly different from what you do on a daily basis. Is it, again, financially interesting? What is the motivation behind this? What do you get from that?
Yeah, I would say it's a combination of all three. Number one, I love to be connected with founder, CEO people that have a vision, that had the guts to actually start something when there was nothing, and they ask me to become part of their board because of my network, because of my knowledge, and because of the questions that I ask. So for me, it's nice to be able to help them with their proposition from a marketing perspective, help them with connections because I believe in their product or service, and help them with partnerships and potential corporate strategic relationships that might become a partnership, might become a strategic partnership that becomes a acquisition. So those are the different hats that I have on that are quite different from the B2C marketing that I do on my consultancy company. And that make it very interesting for me. What you said financially, I wouldn't say that this is something that is extremely interesting financially right now, but you can think about different hybrid ways where rather than charging them every month or quarter, you could also say, hey, I would actually like to have a stake in the company in exchange for the clients I bring in, the partnerships I build, in exchange for the time I put in. I would like to actually have a stake. So I'm actually aligned with the CEO founder in that sense. So then in the future, it could be very interesting financially.
And how do you find, I mean, I believe you already kind of answered this question. It seems those companies found you. But typically, how do you find this kind of
Hmm.
role? Is it always them coming to you? Is that the standard way to get there?
So I tried to go on platforms like New Role, where you can find board memberships. Nothing came out. The way that they come to me is indeed through my network. So at GetYourGuide, we have lots of investors. Um, and one of them said, hey, do you know company A? I'm interested in if it would be interesting for GetYourGuide. So I met up with the CEO and we had a wonderful conversation of 3 hours long. And we found out that we're brothers from another mother. There's just this click between us. And based on that conversation, he said, I would love for you to become an advisory board member. And that same entrepreneur introduced me to Voyantis now. The other advisory board membership I have, I actually got to know him on the padel court. So it can come from various directions, and it just by talking with people, getting to understand their challenges, and getting to know each other, these things can happen.
So if I try to map your personal experience to someone's standard career evolution, full-time job, step one, having a side gig, that could be something helping you, that you don't have to wait for 20 years to get that started. That can actually bring you the additional curiosity, experience, and all that. And I'm assuming the advisory board member comes much later because you need to have that experience that you bring to the table. So that would be the – potentially the next step. Am I getting that right in your –
Yes.
So we talked a little bit about getting to know yourself, your short psychology study. Can you tell us a little bit about the Awake Origins intensive program and why you think it matters to both your career and personal fulfillment to be aligned with your true self? Why is that important? How do you get there?
Yeah, one step back. So, on my personal life, I married a relationship of 20 years already with on the loose, and we have four children, age 18, 16, 14, 13. So, two boys, two girls, who arrived within 4.5 years of each other. So, it's not like I wasn't busy in my personal life already. The reason why I was looking for, I would say, my inner compass more is because 25 years of full time working, probably a bit more than full time, I was ignoring my body's signals of to take it easy, and I pushed through a lot of them and pushed for so many years that in the end my body shut down. I couldn't do sports anymore. I couldn't get up the stairs anymore. So some call it burnout. DSM-5, the psychology handbook, calls it depression. Whatever it was, I couldn't work anymore, and I needed to stop. And this was a godsend because I, for the first time in my career, had the time to just be with myself and to think a lot, to talk with a coach, talk with the therapist. And after understanding what coping mechanisms from my youth didn't serve me anymore, I started thinking about, you're called the marketing blueprint. I did a blueprint scan of my being. So it's not just a personality test, but also your unconscious side. And I want to live my life in alignment with that blueprint scan. And this is what Awake Origins helps you with. So I started off with a 3-day retreat. I did that because the first talk I had with Joel, the founder, he let me do a connected breathing exercise where I went from, and you see this ring, the aura ring, I went from highly stressed because it was my last week at Get Your Guide and I was thinking, what's going to be next, to extremely relaxed in just 10 minutes of breathing. And I was so astonished that just breathing can do this with you that I thought, I want to know more about this. I became the student again, and this is what I am right now. I'm a student of my inner workings, my own like unique software, so to speak, to understand better the work that I'm doing right now really fits well with my blueprint scan, because I love to take a look in kitchens and be a critical thinker. But also in my blueprint scan, it says that I'm, visionary. So I love to imagine how things might be in the future, love to tinker with things. But indeed, I also get bored easily. So this line of work where you have many different customers really works for me. But in the end, I do believe that I want to make the world a better place as well. And finding that is also why I do retreats, why I do solitary, silent days, to just do a lot of thinking on that front and be more deliberate in the choices I make in my life.
And I would assume if you were to do it all again, you would start that earlier. You wouldn't wait for burnout to get that learning
Yeah.
to improve your.
That would be great, but in the end, I said it's a godsend. So even though it was not great to go through, it brought me so much more. Um, I hope that for my children, that I'm raising them in a way that they stay closer to themselves. Of course, you can't take everything away. I like the saying, all parents screw up their children. The question is to what extent, right?
Agreed.
So ideally, and I see it happening with them in the Rudolf Steiner school, where two of the four are in. They are so much more aware of themselves because that's what is taught in school. It's not just about learning the stuff in books, but it's also philosophy. It's also introspection. It is, no right or wrong. There's a lot of nuance in that school, and it makes them become independent thinkers at a much younger age than when you have a classical school system.
So talking about younger generation and what you can teach your kids and what you cannot teach your kids and have to hope for the best. Last question for today. What is your top advice for young generation starting a marketing career today that would love to have a similar path to yours and get everything you've been able to achieve? What is that one piece of advice that you would have for these people?
Find an environment that has that purpose, autonomy, mastery setup. And if I make the connection to my own career, it's having that one person that gives you a chance. That one person, in my case, was the one with the clear sense business plan. There was no company yet. He needed somebody to do sales. I had the call center experience, and he said, I will teach you online marketing. You don't know it yet, but I'll teach it. I know you can understand it, but you know sales. And that kind of opportunity is what you need. And then just run with it, with your curiosity, with your compassion, with everything you have. So I would that's the advice I would give you, is connect with lots of people and bring your true self, so that people know who you are, what you stand for, and give you a chance.
Excellent piece of advice. Thank you so much for this, Wouter. Thank you for taking the time and accepting to be the first guest of the third season of Marketing Blueprint. It was a pleasure having you as a guest today. Hopefully that's just a start. We might have more conversations. I know you also have customer experience issues every now and then, so maybe there's another podcast where where you could be a guest. Thank you so much for
Merci
your
à
time.
toi, Julien. À bientôt.
À très bientôt, j'espère. Thank you everyone for watching. That was the first episode of 2026 for Marketing Blueprint. Please stay tuned. More guests coming in 2026. Thank you, everyone.